Move, nightmare. Move to Vegas. Go to the PI. Get your body in shape. Use those tools. Use those assets. And because right now, not it.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Cage Cash. That's Ryan. I'm John. And we're going to get into UFC Vegas 69, all the content, all the bets. Here we go. Ryan, how you feeling?
Feeling good about it, John. Pretty ass card when you've got the ladies up at the top. You're not going to get a whole lot, but it should be a fun fight, especially Andrade Blanchfield's a great fight. And there's a couple other interesting ones on this card. These next couple weeks in UFC are okay, but I think they're fun from both a betting and DFS perspective. I think we'll have a couple looks that you guys can cash in on as well. So I'm excited. I'm never going to complain about a good fight card, and I love Andrade stepping up on short notice here. Blanchfield's a really interesting prospect, right? Like only 24, 25 years old, coming out of New York, New Jersey, just kind of like that new school of MMA fighter who is just like came in very talented in BJJ, right? Like she is a jiu-jitsu specialist, but works in that wrestling as well, like gets the takedown and finds submissions. That's what she's been able to do in the UFC. Maybe not to the extent, in some fights, but has really looked good recently. So it's going to be a really high level fight. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, really excited to break down this card with you, John.
All right. We'll let you save the rest of the analysis for later. But first of all, we appreciate a lot of the support on our last video. Did big numbers, up from 2 views to over 40 views. So we're just moving on up. The Cage Cash listeners, we appreciate the support. If you want to subscribe, like the video, leave some comments. We're still waiting for our first comment. If we can
throw a W in the chat, boys. Just throw a W in the chat. We'd appreciate that. We'd appreciate that a lot. And let's just keep it moving. Let's just keep cashing. All right.
We would. All right. So we'll have all the UFC Vegas 69 content coming up. But first, we are going to start with a quick recap. UFC 284 in Australia. One of my favorite cards I've watched as a UFC fan, especially the main event. But we just want to do a quick recap. Ryan, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, John, that was what a fun card. And here I'm going to try and get it pulled up for us just so we have it. But it was such a fun card, right? And we saw such an interesting result there in the final, and we've had so much discussion of it afterwards, right? With Islam.
Oh, don't worry, we'll get into IV Gate, but first,
yeah, we'll get into IV
Gate.
No, but let me try and find this. But anyway, yeah, John, I like that. I like that card a lot. It started off kind of slow, but we had some really interesting fights near the end, right? Like we saw Parker Porter, my man. We had talked about it here on the pod. I'm a big Porker guy myself, but he did not get it done for us. Justin Tafa went out there, got the job done. Justin Tafa pissed afterwards because he didn't get that 50K bonus. He was calling Dana out in the tweets. And it's like, all right, Justin Tafa, still you're 6-3 now. Let's relax, just some low heavyweights slugging it out, but lost a little bit of money there.
I'd say overall yeah.
What'd you think, Jack? How'd you do on the night from a betting perspective?
I've had better nights, maybe not the most disciplined approach to my bets. Going back to the podcast, though, we did have a lot of success. We talked about Zubaira being challenged. That went the distance with a big upset with Brenner. I was way off on a few. I went for a few underdogs.
Pretty weak scorecard there.
It
I thought
was,
Zubair
it
on
was.
that too. To be fair, but we'll keep but agreed. Keep
We
going.
had Shanus, that didn't work out well for me. We had Tyson Pedro, another one that I'm frankly embarrassed. I got to be honest. I tweeted at him from the Cage Cash account, calling him out because he's saying he's got diarrhea. I thought it was a BS excuse after the fight. I ended up deleting that, and I wasn't sure that's our brand. But as a Cage Cash listener, you should know my feelings. I was pretty disappointed. But moving on to the main card, we had a great fight with Menafield, which was a kind of a bummer. We both really nailed our outlook there. Got hurt with the draw.
What a fight! What a fight, though. I mean, man, like if you're just a casual, you're just a fan, and like both of them got knocked out like a couple times during that fight. Like I mean, if the cage wasn't there, I think he would have been into the third row. Like that was a crazy fight.
He had him on the ropes. I mean, a lot of guys on Twitter calling out the fight IQ of our boy Alonzo. Fair or unfair, he had him a few times, wasn't able to get the finish, but happy.
I mean, I think both of them just have bad fight IQ, right? Like I don't know that it's like
that's probably
either of it. Like we could have gone and slugged on the feet, or could have gone and taken down, and like both of them would have had a path, and instead they just kind of did the opposite. So
yeah. And then we also had Yair Rodriguez, great fight. Looked honestly, I mean, Emmett was a big challenge, and he was able to really take him off his game with his kicks, kind of an unconventional style. There's a few times you watch the highlights back, I think many other guys in the weight class are getting knocked out by a few of those.
Oh man, you saw some of those shots, right? Like he was taking, I mean, it was crazy. You go back and look at those, right? Like he was taking big shots.
But he was able to we had the knockout, and I think we read it pretty well. I think we were right. And wasn't able to be as aggressive from his wrestling game as usual. Obviously, he's got the big loaded up right hand, but pretty happy with how that fight went down. It was a great submission. I think it was a triangle choke from the guard from Andrade.
Yeah, from bottom, right? That was nice.
It was pretty impressive. And then obviously everyone's been talking about it this week. Volkanovski, Makhachev, just an electric fight. I mean, no matter, I think a lot of the arguing on Twitter getting a little bit old. I think most people who are serious about it would agree. Probably a win for Islam, but doesn't take it all away from what Volk was able to do. Some of those get-ups, third, fourth, well, not as much as fourth, but third, fifth round, some of those moves he was pulling off was awesome to see. And for me, as a guy who remembers kind of the Conor, the notorious experience against Khabib, or a lot of these other Dagestani matchups, you're just not used to seeing the guy who's able to get up and able to keep fighting. You kind of, after that first round, I saw Islam in control, and I was like we might be getting 3 rounds of this and a sub. So just seeing it go 5 rounds was pretty awesome. But that will lead us into IV Gate. We had Dan Hooker. He came out, tweets on, I believe, Sunday. And
little phone call coming in. Little phone call.
Exactly. Got sources on the line. It might be Hooker now disputing this, but there's been a lot of talk about it. And today there's actually a tweet from there's been kind of a back and forth between Ariel.
Dude, what's Ali doing? He outed him. He outed him.
He did. He said, I believe he said that it's legal for fighters to get 2 to 3 liters of IV. Ariel came back, and then he deleted the tweet. So this is Ali. I got it pulled up. I don't know his name.
Abadaz. Everyone knows what we're talking about.
Abdelaziz. And he's
if you're watching this channel, you know who we're talking about. He's a manager for the fighters.
Yep. So he came out, said, for all those idiots out there, any fighter under the UFC banner can take 2 to 3 liters of IV as long as it's done by a nurse or a professional. That's not the case. You can take 100 milliliters per 12 hours, and according to Ariel. And Ali deleted his tweet. Doesn't look great, but
It doesn't look great at all. I mean,
doesn't
personally, like I couldn't give less of a fuck about like them
right.
getting IVs. You know what I mean? Like, because I feel like if you're not like everybody's cheating in this sport to an yeah, like maybe not really cheating, but
Yeah.
right. Like I think it is a sport where you are doing everything you can to get an advantage, right? Like I think there's a lot of rules that kind of go under the radar, and like we see a lot of people getting drug suspensions and things for a reason, right? Like I don't know. I doubt that yeah, but anyway, go ahead, John.
Yeah, and I mean, my take, I mean, I think like you're saying, relatively, I'm not upset as a fan about an IV, even if it is the case, even if it's against the rules. I mean, they're already doing pretty dangerous weight cuts. Do I want to see a guy that's way over dehydrated, way underweight going in there and having like a medical incident? No. I mean, I get it.
Right.
Be fair by the letter of the law, but Volk
But
went
it
in
seems
there.
like a lot of people are doing it, right? And it's like it, but it's interesting to me for Islam, right? Like it's not like Islam was cutting down, right? Like I'd be interested to see how that affects him as he continues to go
Yeah.
forward, right?
It'll be
Because
interesting to see if he's got it in him to keep fighting
like
him.
clearly 155 is a tough cut for him. You know what I mean? Like we saw it in the Charles fight, and he didn't look all that like obviously he looked good in the fight, but he didn't look all that good on the scales. And then I mean, God, he looked like when he finished, he go inshallah, and then he looks like he's gonna pass out afterwards, right? Like he did not look good on the scales this past time out. No matter what you want to say, he looked pretty. He didn't look like Emmett, but he didn't look good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Emmett. Oh my God, that photo that was going around, guys, that was insane. Um, but he didn't look good. It'll be interesting to see how he does. The real question now is just going to be like, do they match him right back up, or do they
Exactly. So
kind of
before we move
put them
on,
back to their divisions?
yeah, before we move on to Vegas 69, that's my last question for you. Do you think we should get an Islam Volk 2 right away, or let them kind of sort out their weight classes a bit? And
No, I think Yair uh, probably
you,
deserves a shot. If I'm Volk, I'm doing everything I can to just get the rematch right away, because I think it sets him up for the most options. And if he wins, he can. I don't like the featherweight continuation for Volk, right? Like he's got to deal with Yair, and then it's like, I don't know. You just got prospects continuing to come up, right? Like I don't. It's just going to continue to get tougher and tougher for him. I think his better shot is go get those, big money fights in lightweight, right? Even if he's because he has a chance to really get that name value here, and I think he did to a sense in this last fight. So
yeah, and
yeah, I don't know.
I
What,
agree.
what would you as a fan? I'd love to see them run it back,
Yeah,
but like Islam also beat him. Like very like I said that then I say that now. Like Islam won that fight. I thought 3-2 or almost 4-1, right? Like I would have never scored that for Volkanovski. No matter how you score it, I wouldn't have scored it for Volk, no matter how much I love him. So I'd love to see him run it back, but I didn't think Volk did enough to get that W.
I agree. I think send Volk back. Let him go up against Yair. Kind of what did they say? Unify that belt, and then maybe give Islam Dairouche. Let that fight happen finally. But with that said, let's move on into
Thanks.
this week's fight card. UFC Vegas 69. As Ryan stated earlier, maybe not the most stacked card of all time, but UFC is setting up for some pretty loaded pay-per-views down the line, especially 285, 286. So it should be expected for our next few fight nights. But with that said, let's get into the fights. And if you want to go fight by fight, we will have it bookmarked below so you can watch as we go. But let's start it off. First fight, we have Juan Camilo Ronderos, who is plus 240, 4-1 against Clayton Carpenter, minus 300, 6-0, obviously 6 straight wins. Ryan, I'll set you up here. I mean, I saw you going back and forth on Twitter this week. Carpenter, kind of a stud in the making, has some highlights for sure as he's led up to this point. Might be a little too much of a favorite, some are saying, but let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, this is an interesting fight, John. Clayton Carpenter is coming in off the Contender Series, off kind of the regional scene, and has looked good, right? He's a young hot prospect out of Arizona, and it's just been pretty dominant so far, right? Like he has good stand up, good wrestling, kind of looks good everywhere, and he's very powerful. You know, the big thing about him is he hasn't been tested kind of whatsoever. You've seen him taken down in some regional fights as well and kind of control on the mat. It's like the question is like, how good is he really? Like clearly he has that. He has a bit of go out of the gas tank, right? But we see that out of a lot of regional fighters. And like, what does he look like as he gets extended and kind of takes a fight the whole way? So that'll be an interesting kind of thing to look at here. We saw on the Cage Cash Twitter, right, that's been retweeted, that sweet knockout head kick he had last time, right? It's against an absolute, like the guy was like 2-7, like, you know, like, so I'm just not, I think Carpenter's really good, but like I don't think we can know that for sure, right? And that's kind of the way I'm approaching this fight with Ronderos coming in, right? So Ronderos is 4-1, also, you know, hasn't done a lot himself. Came in and lost in the UFC on his first time out. He fought David Dvorak, lost pretty convincingly, pretty quickly, as you kind of expect David Dvorak on short notice, you know. But he looked okay there, and he's looked good in his last couple of fights. But then he had a huge suspension, so he had a weed and coke suspension for like 18 months. Following his past fight, so he like
I'd never fly in the slap league.
So this was a year and 8 months ago, right? So he drug tested positive, had a 9-month suspension, and then he had like an elbow injury, and they had another 9 months, right? So he's coming back off a big surgery and like a drug suspension. You know, I've liked what I liked what I saw from him on tape. He can definitely get controlled himself. Like he's not awesome, but I think this line is wide just from their skill sets, right? So I played a little bit of Ronderos plus 260. A lot of people are parlaying Carpenter this week. I don't love that, but like if you're into the narrative, the UFC needs a guy to get a win. Like it might seem like they're getting the cokehead out and, you know, promoting Carpenter here, but it, you know, not for me to say. What do you think, John?
Yep, don't have too much on it. I think I'm going to roll with you. I think taking a fighter's coke away could have bad effects on his aggressiveness, his approach to the fight. I'll say Carpenter, based off that. I think Dana, with highlights like he's had, even if they haven't been against great guys, I think this is going to be one where he's able to come in first fight of the night on a pretty empty card and have a good chance to make a name for himself when there's not much else to talk about. So I'm going to ride with you here, and that's all I got. In listeners, you'll see Vegas 69. They're hitting me with a lot of names that, as not an all-in UFC guy, haven't heard of, don't know who they are. So we're flying with Ryan heavy this week, as a Cage Cash army. So next fight we got welterweight. That is a hilarious photo of the ghost. I can see the nickname resemblance now. But we got United States' AJ Fletcher, 9-2, coming off 2 losses, as a -240 favorite over the answer, Themba Gorimbo out of Zimbabwe. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, this has been like the Twitter fight of the week, right? Like all the boys are out there talking about. Everyone loves AJ Fletcher in this matchup. I mean, I do too. AJ Fletcher is 0-2 in the UFC. But he doesn't seem that bad, right? Like he's fought Matt Semmelsberger and Alex Lusa, who are both like above average, welterweights. Like they're winning more fights than they're losing, which, for most people in the UFC is actually kind of a hard statement to say, right? Like they're above average people and they're going to be in the UFC for a while. Now, I think Fletcher needs this win if he's going to stay around, right? Because I think they're bringing in Themba here as kind of like the one-off out of Zimbabwe. He is fine, his stand-up is bad from watching him on the regional scene. Stand-up's bad. He's getting tagged a little bit. He's leaving his chin out for grabs, like not great stuff. His domain is actually on the ground and like the jiu-jitsu. He's looking for submissions and kind of working off of his back. But I just think Fletcher is too good of a wrestler here, and that's probably, how he'll get it done and dominate. Yeah, I'm pretty confident. He's kind of a Luma Boomy to me this week. Whereas we saw last week, right? Like Themba could give him a little bit of scare in the first round, but like I kind of I trust Fletcher to get it done, right? Like he's gonna be in one right parlays or two this week. Like not every single one, right? Because I think there's a and if you're looking from a DFS perspective, right? I think Themba's got some shot at like at a very low salary light, right? But like I wouldn't be putting him in a lot of my lineups. I think Fletcher has good money, is going to get a lot of takedowns and really control this fight. So
yeah. So I want to shout out quick. I think I'm riding with you here. I thought it was interesting. A guy you had suggested, the Couch Warrior, he was tweeting about Themba this week. He thinks pretty decent price for a guy going up against someone of two straight losses. He said he's probably staying away from it, but one thing he pointed out is if you scroll down there, Gorimbo's got quite a reach advantage, I believe.
Wow.
Almost 10-inch reach advantage.
I agree
overall.
Couch Warrior, nice call, brother.
It was a good shout out. Also, Gorimbo came out and said he will be asking the UFC not to cut AJ Fletcher after he
you check the Cage Cash Twitter, boys. Some hilarious content from Gorimbo. I mean, you gotta if you're just a casual bettor, you gotta trust the answer here. Themba Gorimbo.
Exactly. I mean, I think I see a lot more reasoning behind Fletcher, but as a guy, as you know, last week that likes to shoot a few underdogs. I'm a big fan of Zimbabwe. He's got the reach advantage up against the Ghost, which I mean, picture alone.
Fucking Ghost.
Not a huge fan of it. I might take a small shot on Gorimbo, but I think
AJ Flames Fletcher.
That's at least a better photo.
Better photo, but
I would say probably sprinkle Gorimbo, but don't love it. That's my final analysis.
Let's keep moving up the card, John.
Let's do it. All right. Next fight, we have Hades Ovince St. Preux. I think that's right. Versus Brazil's Philippe Lins. St. Preux, 26-16 all time, coming off a win. And Lins also coming off a win, 15-5 all time. Lins is the moderate favorite here, minus 225, as you can see right there. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, bad fight. We won't spend much time here. OSP is washed, very much so washed.
And he was, correct me if I'm wrong, he was a relatively larger name for a bit?
Yeah, just because he was doing the same. They call it the St. Preux choke, right? So like the Von Flue choke is like, it's this choke, and maybe we can pull it up in maybe our next video. Maybe you can make a note of that, John, and we can show it in our next video. But the Von Flue choke is a really, really interesting submission, a really cool submission. Like if you're just a a casual fan, right? Like basically they use their shoulder, kind of get shoulder pressure on the guy's neck and choke them out with their shoulder, right? Like without doing much else and just putting that shoulder weight on them. And OSP became known for those for a while. A really great submission artist in those heavier weight classes and had a lot of really good highlights back in the last 5 to 10 years or so. But it's 2023, OSP is old. He's 39 and 10 months. He turns 40 pretty soon. He has no business being in the UFC anymore. He has looked dog shit in his last like 3 to 4 fights. Like I have bet on him a couple times in those last 3 to 4 fights, and he had looked awful every single time out. And I'm like, oh, he's gonna get better the next time out. He is worse the next time out. I don't like anything about OSP in this matchup, and like he might have a bit more finishing potential than our guy Felipe Lins, right? Like Felipe Lins was on that PFL scene for a while, actually won the first, $1 million in the when they did the first PFL tournament. He won their weight class for the first time they did it, right? But ever since he's been in the UFC, it's kind of looked like ass. Lost 2 fights to former champ Andre Arlovsky at like 37 years old, right? It's like losing to a Preux now, like to OSP now. Got knocked out by Tanner Boser, who fucking blows. And then Prachnio, who is fighting higher up this card in like the third on the main card. Anyway, they both are terrible. I lean towards Lins here because he started to look like he did a little bit while he was in the PFL last time out. I think OSP is fighting for a paycheck. And I really hope he retires because like a really good fight, to me, he's the Anthony Smith of our day. Like that's, like he is, he's got some great qualities to him. He's never gonna, but he's always right there. Maybe he wasn't getting past those very, very top guys, but I'd love to see OSP go out and get it done. But I've got Felipe Lins here getting it done by KO. So
all right, I'm gonna ride with you there. I don't think there's much need to go further into it. Let's move on quick. Next fight, we have United States' Jamal Emmers against Russia's Hussein Askhabov.
Love this fight.
Yeah, kind of interesting fight. Askhabov's coming in -150, slight favorite, but as you can see there, 23-0. I believe this is his debut in the UFC, but obviously pretty impressive record. I've seen a lot of Twitter content this week, a lot of people trying to talk themselves out of Emmers. Ryan, what are your thoughts here?
I bet Emmers. I got talked into it. I don't know if I'm stupid or
different followers are following.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. I mean, I don't know if I'm stupid. I like Emmers in this matchup, right? Like but man, 23-0 is hard to bet against too. You see, like I went into this. I really did do this card. I tried to do it this time. This was my first time trying to do it without looking at the lines before I did my tape study, right? Just some initial tape study, and I lined these guys pretty similarly, and then I saw the records and I was pretty surprised because I didn't know either of them coming into it. And wow, Askhabov, the 23-0 favorite, has fought really low level on the regional scene, like extremely low level. 23-0 doesn't even seem real. Like a lot of these guys seem fake to an extent. Like he's 28 years old. How's he fought 23 times by now? Like that doesn't make any sense. I don't know. It's a little different in like Russia and China and stuff. I feel like they fight all the fucking time, or like they do like 3 events on like one night or something. But anyway, he's fought garbage. But the interesting thing is he is training out of a good gym now, right? Like I think he's at Tiger Muay Thai and American Top Team, right? Like he's been getting good work. You go on it, like he's got a like here is the actual John. Here is the where's this fucking it doesn't have an Instagram, but you go on this dude's Instagram, right? Like he's sick. You know, like he looks cool. It's like prize fighter or something, you know what I mean? But he just looks kind of like a beast. And I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? Like he could be a pussy. Could be a pussy. And actually, I'm betting I'm gonna be a pussy. I took Emmers here for a unit just because I thought the line was weird, right? Like Askhabov hasn't fought anybody at all, so that's why I'm taking Emmers in this matchup. I just think he's been tested more. I think he has a lot more like past the victory, right? Like Askhabov's path is on the feet. He's gonna try to knock him out. He's gonna try and stand and bang with him. I think Emmers, if he could implement wrestling, he could win. I think on the feet, he has a chance to win. I just see a lot of different paths that he could be at least very competitive here. And for the plus money dog, I think I got him at like 120. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the pretty boy, Jamal Emmers.
All right. I like that. I think he's looking at some of the stuff on him. I mean, I believe in his last fight, got a tough heel hook. I like the line too. I agree with you. It's kind of a weird line. One of those where Vegas might be giving a little bit of a hint. That
I mean, the thing is, right? Like, I feel like Vegas is hedging their bets here, right? They got the 23-0 favorite, who kind of sucked, right? And then you've got the Jamal Emmers, who clearly has terrible fight IQ, right? Because as we know, he went last time out to the ground with Pat Sabatini, who is like, it's like the greasy cousin like you don't want to like tangle with on the mat, you know what I mean? And he just broke his leg. So like we don't do that. Anyway, I just don't think either of these guys have a lot of smarts in their game, but I'm going to trust Emmers at an underdog price to get this done, and I put a bet on it. So make sure you're checking out Ryan's MMA picks for all the free predictions that were posted, at least 4 or 5 days ago now.
Yep. All right. Let's move on. This next fight, I think we can do a pretty quick preview. We got Sweden's Lena Lansberg versus Brazil's Mayra Bueno Silva. Lansberg coming off 3 consecutive losses, sitting at a heavy underdog in this fight. Do you see any reason that she can pull it out?
Not really. She's 41, right? 11 months and 5 days. So she's 41 essentially. She's lost her 3 fights. Her last 3 fights has dropped actually her last 2 fighters, right? Dropped Hanzad and Karahosa in her last 2 fights, but lost both of those fights, right? And I just don't think she has the composure, the power to kind of get this done over the long term. And the biggest question for Bueno Silva here is, can she get takedowns, right? Like, her game is jiu-jitsu, and I think if she can get Lena Lansberg to the mat, right, I think she'll find a finish and she'll find a submission eventually, or she'll just be able to control it from there. Can Bueno Silva get her to the mat? She hasn't shown that great of takedowns in the UFC so far, but like, man, if you've won she kind of won two UFC fights as a pretty big underdog, right? Like, nobody was really expecting a lot from her. She came in and was just like, oh, she's just a submission threat. She's not going to do anything. And like, both of those fights, she was able to win by submission, get an arm bar kind of in guard just as she wanted to, right? Like, people kind of falling into her trap. But if I'm her and I'm a smart fighter, God, I hope some people do this, right? Like let's work on those other skills. If she can work on the wrestling a little bit and just, kind of get her down and work on those takedowns, I think she has amazing grappling that can easily get Lena Lansberg out of there. So I'm loving the heavy favorite here in Bueno Silva, but definitely not touch her at all. In just about anything this week. I don't like her in DraftKings. I don't like her in a parlay. throw in our DraftKings lineup or two, but other than that, she's less of interest. Any thoughts from you, John?
No, not really. I think we'll live with your analysis there. I mean, I kind of lean the same way. I think Silva is able to get it done, and might be the fourth consecutive loss there for Sweden's home.
I mean that's the retirement fight here. That's what I'm thinking. You know, like Bueno Silva wasn't supposed to be all that good, but I think she got the 2 wins.
Might not be, but she's still minus 400.
No, but right, but exactly right. Like let's pair up against a can, kind of get her a name, and she'll get another armbar finish, and she'll have 3 arm bars in the UFC, right? Like,
yeah. All right, let's move on. Next fight. I think this is probably one of the better fights. We welterweight. We have Nazim Sadykhov versus Evan Elder, both from the United States. Sadykhov minus 175, 7-1, 5 in a row. Going up against Elder, 7-1, coming off a loss though. Anything that stands out to you here, Ryan?
Yeah, this is a fight that's gotten a lot of back and forth on kind of Twitter and the MMA media this week. Honestly, maybe the fight I'm most excited for on this entire card. Man, I'm gonna go with the. No, I don't want. I don't even say it yet. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going with it. Nazim Sadykhov is a strong puncher. Has really, not fought a ton of high level competition, but has looked good on the regional scene. Right. He lost the one fight, but has been working at Longo and Co, right? Like Longo and Weidman, and has looked good there with Matt Frivola, steamroll Frivola, right? Like he's been tweeting about him, and like everybody steamroll has been tweeting about lately. It's kind of been on, I don't know, those guys have been on a win streak, so I'm not in the business of betting against those guys, I'm a big steamroll guy myself. So he looks good, but for what I expected, kind of then going back and watch the tape, I didn't love what I saw. He looked a little slow. He looked a little he was getting caught, a little bit, and just kind of like standing up and not being great. Now, Evan Elder was 7-0 until he came into the UFC, but then he came in and fought Preston Parsons, who himself isn't great, but he fought up a weight class, right? Came in short notice, weak, right? And fought 10 pounds up, so like, and he got dominated on the ground, he got dominated in the wrestling. And anyway, I think he's got actually, competitive striking. I don't think he wants to stand with Sadykhov the whole time, but I think if he can work in some clinch positions and some wrestling, that he could look, like the minus 175 favorite here. And this line kind of continues to inflate, and we can look at the line here, John. The line kind of continues to inflate towards Sadykhov here. We're getting an average of about it'll load about 195, right? So almost a 2-1 favorite on Sadykhov here. But I think Elder, if he can kind of survive, it's one of those survive fights, and I think he either has a chance for, a decision or a late stoppage himself, because I don't think Elder's a wimp by any means, So I've been looking at kind of like an Elder round 3. Like initially watching the tape, I was looking at Elder KO. Saw some odds that kind of dissuaded me from that. But maybe I'm on an island, but I think an Elder round 3 or 2 or 3 KO could be really interesting here if Sadykhov doesn't go out and get it done early, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it might be a little more of a toss-up than the numbers look like. I like Sadykhov here. I think coming in off the Contender Series, has momentum with him still. As you said, part of a pretty elite gym at this point. I think he's going to have a little more comfort in there. Like I said, the momentum. But I agree with you. I would probably stay away from any parlays, anything like that with him. I think it's going to be a close fight. And like you said, probably one of the ones I'm most excited for on a card of not much. But let's move on. Next fight, we have another welterweight. Oh, that fight was lightweight, excuse me, but this next one's welterweight. We have the United States' Jim Miller, 35-16, coming in plus 160, going up against the Great Ape, Alexander Hernandez, coming off 2 straight losses, 13-6, minus 200. Wow. Ryan, what do you think?
Wow, you tell me, John. What do you think after that reaction?
Well, my reaction, it probably isn't a great look for me. That's my first time seeing these stats, but it's always a little bit of a wake up call. You see the minus 200 favorite with a guy that's coming off 2 consecutive losses. But you look over at Jim Miller, 39 years old, 35-16. That man has fought a lot. I can see why. To be honest with you, I'll need a little more insight on Jim Miller. Seems like maybe just a journeyman who's working his way through it, but coming off 3 consecutive wins with a ton of experience. That first kind of whoa was thinking the stats don't totally line up. Maybe a little too much of a underdog.
Yeah. So it's an interesting fight, right? Because we got Alexander Hernandez, who is 30 years old, right? He's young. Against Jim Miller. So Jim Miller, John, is actually the most winningest fighter in UFC history.
I feel like that's a stat I should have known.
But... No, but like not really though, because he's not that big, right? Like he's fighting like.
Yeah.
Well, let's go through so we don't get called out as complete casuals here. Because let's see who he fought, right?
Fought everybody.
I mean, he's fought everybody, right? So we'll go through it. He was winning fights. He lost to Gray Maynard, who himself is a great fighter. Lost to Henderson. Lost to Diaz, right? But beat Joe Lozon, beat Ronderos, lost to Cerrone, Dariush. Okay. Once he was in the UFC, so we're getting to 2015 by now. And then we'll go through it together, right? Beat Joe Lozon again. Lost to Dustin Poirier. Lost 4 in a row here, right? But I mean, man, look at that level of competition. Poirier, Pettis, Trinaldo, and Hooker. Wow.
There are 2 fights after.
Like that's top. That's top in a 1-year stretch, essentially. Oh. Then he gets White, loses to Oliveira, gets 2 more as he beats Quigley as he should have. Loses Scott Holtzman, beats Roosevelt Roberts as he should have. Okay, loses to Vince Pichel. Anyway, we keep going up the rankings. These last couple times out, Nicholas Mota just got suspended by the commission for 2 years for drug use. So he is maybe not a guy you want to rely on. And then Donald Cerrone, as we have seen, is retired. So, with all of that, John, I just want to make sure we didn't get called out for calling Jim Miller a bum. But
hey, I didn't call him a bum. I just had no clue.
No, he's kind of a bum though. In my opinion, he's kind of fucking bum. Like, I mean, he's a UFC back in the day fighter, right? Like he doesn't. Yeah, he's just like, I mean, he is a perfectly capable fighter who, against other average to bad fighters, will win, you know? But I don't like a lot of his tools anymore at 39. The only thing I like about him is his personality, whereas Alexander Hernandez, you know, has a lot of those physical tools, has a lot of that power. We've seen him do it more recently, but man, does he look bad, like when he gets touched with just about anything. But I think this move up to welterweight is going to help him a lot. There's been a lot of videos going around. I don't know if you've seen them this week, John, but as Hernandez was cutting down to featherweight, right? All about his cock not working anymore.
Oh, all right.
Down at featherweight. It's a pretty hilarious video. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
get it up on the YouTube next time out. But there was kind of a UFC interview and they're asking him like, the toughest parts of cutting weight or whatever, and
Not ideal.
he's talking about going down to featherweight and not everything working as it should. So the realities these guys go through, and that's maybe why we're seeing the IV bags from
Yeah, exactly. It's a sacrifice.
But anyway,
yeah,
I bet Alexander Hernandez in this matchup at like minus 185, minus 200.
Okay.
I like him here a lot. I like him by KO. I think this is just kind of like a setup fight and a retirement fight for Jim Miller. I think people are just are biased against Hernandez for his last two losses, and I don't think like they're against two like high level guys. Like again, like I think that's what you got to remember sometimes in UFC and stuff like that, right? Like there are winners and there are losers of the sport, but like to you know what I mean? There are guys who maintain momentum with or without a loss, and guys who don't, right? Kind of, and like right, a Moicano and a Quarantillo are both those guys, right? Like you're not putting them up against them unless you're expecting a banger, right? And I think Hernandez maybe just got a little bit too much too soon, but I think he's gonna fucking dominate Jim Miller. So I'm pretty big on Hernandez this week.
Yeah, only what was that, a month and 4 weeks ago? So he's been in the octagon.
He got knocked out quick. He got knocked out recently, but I'm still on him. I'm on him.
All right. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Miller is probably not showing enough to take the risk at the underdog. But we'll see what happens. I'm excited about this next fight. One of my favorite, at least on paper, fighters, the Nightmare out of the United States. We got William Knight going up against Poland's Marcin Prachnio. Exactly, like I said. William Knight coming in 11-4 off 2 losses. Prachnio 15-6 off a loss. I like Knight here mainly because he's 5'11", fighting at light heavyweight, just an absolute beast. Anyone that's watched UFC has seen pictures of this dude post fight. I mean, he's just a monster. I mean, you can see he's got like the WWE look to him, where he's just
he's gonna make weight. No way. I don't even believe it. I don't believe he'll make 205.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's just a monster. Ryan, do you have any deeper analysis other than me picking this solely off aesthetic?
I mean, that's a good way to pick this fight, I think. I don't think either of these guys are very good at what they do. Prachnio is definitely a little bit more technical. Like if they're just going to stand at striking range, I think Prachnio wins this fight. But, that's not what Knight's going to do. Knight's going to try and work him into the clinch and just throw those big overhand rights. And against a guy like Prachnio, I think he's got a good chance of landing it. So,
give us a look? What are we looking at over under here?
Yeah, let's take a look, John.
I think this could be an interesting one. I think this could be a pretty violent fight.
Yeah. So I actually took in this fight, I took the under a couple days ago at under 2.5. I think I got it like minus 125, minus 135. You can still get it at minus 160. But man, is that a better look to me than like fight doesn't go at minus 240, right? Like, it depends, but like a lot
if they make it to that point, they might be too gassed out anyways. They're both known for a little bit suspect cardio.
Right. I don't think the cardio is going at like, it's not going at the end of the third round, right? Like cardio is gone before that in my mind, right? They survived to that point in the third round. They survived, right? And that's a tough beat to have. But man, I could see him getting finished before that. So I think that's an interesting look here. And we've seen a lot of money kind of coming in on William Knight lately. The lines kind of continued to move towards William Knight. So it's interesting here. Clearly, I mean, God, like you watched him. I can't believe he's gonna make like heavyweight here. Like he looked so fucking fat in his like it looked. I have no interest in betting anything with this fight. I'm gonna have to
fat, but he's cut up.
no, but like, dude, like no, no, like you look him up on Instagram, bro. He's like he seems to have, and I'm sorry, William Knight, if you're listening,
weight
like
loss strategy.
no, but he just seems like he's like 11 years old. Like it's like I don't know, like he doesn't like he's a child. Like he's a child. William Knight, you're a child.
Wow. Going with the nightmare. Hear you say that. Could be bad news.
Nightmare. Well, I mean,
I'm just saying. I don't think you want to let that.
Get a real nutritionist. Nightmare. You're a UFC fighter. Okay, just move to Vegas.
It's gonna be on the Twitter.
Nightmare. Move to Vegas. Go to the PI. Get your body in shape. Use those tools. Use those assets. And because right now, not it.
Just to be clear, if you're seeing this, William, that was Ryan Cullen at Ryan's MMA Picks. I'm going to be taking you first round KO. I think you're going to come out here, drop some absolute bombs, and I'm going to walk to the bank happy, and then we can talk about what we're going to do with this guy over here. I mean, headband, goatee, and fucking muscles. That's all you need. And I'm gonna go under. That's a pick I like, but I'll probably sprinkle little William Knight first round. I think they're gonna come out swinging, and he's gonna knock him out, and then he's gonna go knock out Ryan. But we will move on. We got 3 more fights on this loaded UFC Vegas 69 card right here. Another double United States fight out of Brighton, Michigan. Wow.
Yeah, baby. Wow, I know.
So we got Josh Parisian, 15-5, coming off a win, slight underdog, plus 180 against the Stormtrooper, Jamal Pogues.
Why are you so weird about announcing the name?
Well, dude, I don't know how to say any of these names. I'm going to go Pogues. I don't want to offend any of our listeners if I'm throwing out. If we get a big-time UFC fighter,
Pogues.
Well, I didn't know if it was like. I don't think
we're getting any UFC fighter.
Anyways, 9-3, 2 straight wins, minus 225. He's out of Victorville, California. Ryan, walk us through how you're approaching this heavyweight bout. If you have anything.
That's about how I'm approaching this heavyweight bout. I'm not super interested about it from either DraftKings or a kind of betting perspective. I lean violence in this fight. You can kind of get some good numbers on fight doesn't go. And, you know, if I am having a couple drinks, kind of third fight to the main event, right? This is the perfect fight to bet fight doesn't go. We've seen the kind of line moving here all week. Yeah. So minus 105 to minus 113. I bet this here, the under 2.5 at plus 116. I think that's not a bad look, honestly. Like, I think getting plus money on that under 2.5 is not bad. I like Pogues to kind of go out there and get it done within the first 2 rounds, or Parisian to just find that counter and put Pogues down. I don't think either of these guys are super high level, right? Like, anybody fighting out of Brighton, Michigan, if you're from Michigan, like, you know that anybody fighting out of Brighton, Michigan, like why are they, like, they're not, like, there are levels to the sport within the UFC even that, like, sometimes don't get recognized, I feel like, right? Like, some guy fighting out of Brighton, like, let's keep that in mind, okay? So, like,
I don't know about this.
I'm gonna stop
throwing at the Brighton area right now.
I'm gonna throw out a lot of hate in the Brighton area, and maybe Parisian comes out and proves me wrong. And I haven't been like hateful of what I've seen even from Parisian in the UFC, but I'm I'm not trusting Brighton fighters on my cards, John. I got to be honest.
This is after the success of Jamal out of Grand Rapids. I'm sticking with the Michigan man based solely on him being a Michigan man. I agree with you though. I think it's going to be something where it might be a fun fight leading into the co-main events, but not a ton.
I mean, the thing is here, Pogues is a much more interesting fighter, right? But the thing is, I just don't. It's going to be another one of those kind of like heavyweight slobber knockers. Like neither of these guys are really finishers, which is interesting for a 9-3 guy just coming into the UFC, right? Fighting at heavyweight, but Jamal Pogues is not really a huge finisher, so I think we might just kind of get a gross stand-up battle on the feet. And man, a lot of ways I like Pogues here. Parisian could just outvalue him here if Pogues doesn't work in kind of anything else. But yeah, I'm taking most of the matchup.
All right, let's move on. First co-main event of the night, we have the United States, Zach Pauga versus Jordan Wright. As you can see there, Pauga, the Ripper, 5-1, minus 300 in the co-main event against Wright with 12-4, 3 straight losses, plus 240. Interesting thing here is based on those rankings, it looks like Pauga is fighting down a class and Wright's fighting up. Not sure if those are entirely accurate, but not another fight that doesn't have a ton of draw for me. Beverly Hills Ninja is a solid nickname, but if you're trashing on Brighton, Michigan, and they're fighting, I would have to guess Beverly Hills might have a similarly unimpressive background to it in terms of mixed martial arts. Ryan, do you have anything that stands out to you here?
No, not really. Line's wide, probably. Like this fight's not going the distance. I think this might be the one most favorite on the card, not go the distance. And
so they're fighting at 205. All right. So it's got, if you look at it, it's got
fighting at 205.
I think it's
they're fighting at light heavyweight.
He's at 239 listed.
But look, the under one has
Oh,
minus
Lord.
165. Fight doesn't go minus 600, right? So Jordan Wright has only been over 1.5 one time, and it was by about like 12 seconds or something, right? And Zach Pauga is 5-1, with his only loss coming to Mo Usman, brother of Kamaru. God, what both roid raged monsters they are. Mo Usman, not good. So that was tough to see from Pauga. And that's why, like, as a minus 300 favorite, I have absolutely zero interest in backing him here. Like,
does UFC have to have co-main events? Like, why is this a co-main event with what would be arguably a really good matchup in the next fight? Like,
I think they just do it. I don't know that. Like, I think it's just like
maybe they want a guy and a girl.
I don't really understand why they're promoting either of these guys. Like, I guess they're both promotable. But like, I don't know that they're gonna get like a lot of fan. Either of them are gonna get like a lot of fan support off this win. So anyway, Pauga was fighting on Ultimate Fighter and looked good. Was gonna win that, and was winning that fight against Usman until he just got flash kind of KO'd and was done. Jordan Wright has lost 3 straight, is in fun ass fights, but kind of swings, and the chin doesn't have what the hands do, and he quickly goes down, right? So like, man, in this fight I like Pauga, but I like the under even more because I don't think either of these guys have much of a chin from what we've seen, but also I think if Pauga won his last fight, I think a minus 300 favorite here wouldn't be that like unexpected, you know what I mean? Yeah. But like, the thing is, we saw his chin tested in the last time, and that's really the only time we've seen it tested, and he went down, right? So like maybe that was just flashy, and it caught him. But like I don't love seeing that if I am a backer of ZP over here, the Ripper at 5, also at 5-1. Like 5-1 in MMA, I don't know that I'm biting on a minus 300 favorite, right? Like
34.
I'm always looking at guys in MMA, especially who are, no matter guys or girls, who are going to fight hard for my money, right? And like I can guarantee that no matter what, they're going out there.
Right. That's Tyson Pedro. That man did not fight hard for my money last week.
No, exactly, right? Like you want guys who are going to go out there and work hard, and like they're always about it, right? Like those are the guys you want to back, because no matter what, you're going to feel good about backing them, right? You're going to be like, okay, I understood why I did that.
Yeah. All right. I think we're good to move on. And for the Cage Cash listeners out there, we will note, and I think we're going to put this at the beginning of the video, this card, it's testing me as the casual of the group. There is not a ton here to chew on, but let's move into the main event, which is a fight that should be really exciting, a lot of fun to watch, and have probably 10x the implications moving on from Saturday that any of the rest of these fights have. We have Brazil's Jessica Andrade, shoot, I messed that up, versus the United States, Erin Blanchfield. Obviously, big fight. Andrade looking to put herself back in that title fight picture, coming in minus 160, 3 consecutive wins, 24-9 against cold-blooded Erin Blanchfield, who's looking to kind of kick off what could be a star in the making type of run for her. They put her up against Malik McMahon, who is one of the UFC's top kind of who they were putting over up till that point. And she took quick work of her, dusted off her shoulders after a quick submission. I think it's a great fight. I'm excited to see what happens. I saw earlier in the week, you went Andrade, and I think I pronounced her name 6 different ways, but
that's right. You got it.
I think I like Blanchfield here. I think she does have that up and coming star in the process. But Ryan, let's have you walk us through what you're seeing
here. Yeah, I mean, I looked at this matchup and I bet against myself a little bit, right? Like I see a bit of Erin Blanchfield in myself, 23 and 9 months, just about the same. But man, I don't think she has fought the Jessica Andrade of the world yet, right? Like I think there are levels in MMA, and then there's levels in women's MMA, right? Like you are either point fighting, or like some of these girls, women, whatever, are fucking killers, right? Like, and I think Jessica Andrade is one of those women, right? Like she is gonna go out there and just work hard and try and find that finish, right? And I think the whole thing is, if she can defend takedowns, like Blanchfield's fucked on the feet.
Yeah.
If Blanchfield, like, to me, I like violence in this fight more than anything, right? Like I bet the under 3.5 at like minus 150, and that line's still available last time I looked. Like I don't mind that. Yeah, right here, line's still available at minus 150 on like Bet Online, or you can get it at 167 on Bet Rivers. But like, I don't think that line's bad at all, because I think in this fight, it's clear like Andrade coming in on short notice after she just had a big fight and just like beat the fuck out of Molly McCann, right, in the last fight, and just kind of beat her up, did whatever she wanted. But it's like, how fit is she to come back, fight again, against a girl who's been training this entire time. You know, it's just I just think it's a huge step up for Blanchfield, especially, and Tyler Santos is good, but man, I don't think she's as good as Jessica Andrade. I don't. What are your thoughts on Jessica Andrade, John? How familiar are you with her as a just a fan?
Relatively. I mean, I've watched a lot of her big fights. I was watching the highlights the other day of that standing arm triangle, pretty sick, against Lemos, I believe.
Yeah,
And obviously her last win over Lauren Murphy. I
3 weeks ago. 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's pretty absurd. I didn't even realize it was that recent. But I would say I don't hate that analysis. I hadn't really thought of it in that context of just kind of the different levels. And I mean, Blanchfield's obviously had some impressive wins, but McCann was probably already a bit over her skis as a star and kind of got that fight, which was a terrible matchup for her from the beginning. Blanchfield did what she needed to do there. She took care of business like you would want to see from someone who's kind of destined to keep moving up. But it's a pretty big jump she's going through here. I agree with you. I think Andrade, if she's able to keep this on the feet, she's just got a lot more weapons, as you like to call out. She got a lot more in the toolbox, a lot more ways. Even if it goes to the ground, I mean, she's a pretty dangerous fighter all around, and
100%.
she looks like she's at 100% right now. Like she's got the sweet hairdo. She's looking ripped up. I mean, I think she's in a spot now where she's kind of not her last run. I mean, she's not old, but this is kind of her one of her
I
last
agree.
chances to peak out at the top, get that title fight. I
Because
think
that's the
that
thing.
talked me into it.
We've seen her so high level for so long, right? And like who's she losing to? Just Valentina, right? Like,
Yeah.
man, I'd love to see her get this win and get another title shot against Valentina because I think I think it might be a different result right now, right? And that's not to say I don't think Erin Blanchfield is the eventual GOAT of this division, right? But she's 23 years old, and I think this might just be a step too soon
Yeah. I
for
mean, I'd like to see
full
a
blood.
kind of drawn out battle. I mean, I like that under two, but or the under
I
like
mean, I'd love to see. Yeah, I'd love to from a fan perspective.
yeah.
I'd love to see a great kind of back and forth. But
And it
I think
might be like it might be a necessary loss for Blanchfield, like you're saying. Like if she can step in there, compete, um, push it past three rounds, push it deeper, maybe even to decision. She might not have the tools right now, but like you're saying, I think she's kind of got all the
she's
makeup.
just dealing with way more violence than like nobody offers the violence that Andrade does in women's MMA, right?
It's just
Like
experience. I mean, like you said, she's gone up against Valentina. She's gonna have that edge. I mean, this is gonna be the biggest fight of Blanchfield's life. For Andrade, obviously, very important fight, but she's been all over pay-per-view. She's been all over, I believe, co-main events.
right, kind of coming in for the paycheck and for right. Like, I mean, yes,
This is
she
business.
wants
This is
to win the
business
fight,
for
right?
Jessica.
But she's clearly got a little bit of a bag for coming in and taking this on 1 week's notice, right? On 3 weeks of off of a fight. And the big thing has been like, is she hurt? We've seen a lot of she had KT tape on her hand today. And everybody was like, "Oh, her hand's broken," blah blah blah. Like, so anyway, uh, I'm curious to see where this line continues to go. John. Like, I bet Andrade at like -150 earlier in the week. She continues to move down. I might throw another unit on her at -125 if it stays there. Unless I get some late breaking news that she's out of this fight, but we'll see. What are you thinking?
I like a lot of what you said. I did put a little bit based off at Ryan's MMA picks. I saw it earlier in the week. You were on Andrade. I liked it. I might look. I mean, part of me likes to bet the narratives in UFC, which never never turns out too good for me. As I mentioned at the beginning, not the most disciplined better. But from a fan perspective, I think it'd be pretty cool to see Blanchfield continue kind of that epic rise and get it to the ground, kind of control in a way people aren't expecting, and push this fight deep and see what happens. I'm going to go Blanchfield submission, but that's from a rooting perspective. I like that under you threw out too. I think it's going to be.
That big. I
I think
mean,
it might be.
there's a lot of people on Blanchfield this week. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's
I
going
mean,
to be fight. Thankfully enough for me, you, and the Cage Cash listeners, I think it could save us from a pretty boring night. The rest of Vegas 69. So I'm hoping this lives up to expectations. Two worthy, probably champions at some point. At least people in that conversation. I'm going to be excited to see it. And yeah, so I have money on Andrade. I'm rooting for Blanchfield. That's the final. That's the final take.
yeah, I love that, John. Yeah, man, it's gonna be a really interesting night of action. We've got a couple bets lined up. Make sure to take a look at Ryan's MMA picks on Twitter or at Cage Cash Podcast. That's where you can find us. We'll get John's MMA Twitter up and running soon. So he's fully part of the MMA community. But feel free to interact with us, tag us on there. Please leave a like, leave a subscription, throw a dub in the chat. We'd love to see you guys, love to hear from you. Or just reach out to us on Twitter, whatever you guys do. It's been an honor. John, anything else you've got for the faithful here at the Cage Cash Podcast?
I got nothing. I'm gonna be sitting here Saturday night, IV in my arm, getting ready for this fight. Only 100 milliliters though, so it should be regulation. But I'm excited. UFC, even a trash card to spare words. It's always a UFC. There's gonna be something exciting that comes out of it, and I'm excited to see what happens with Vegas 69.
That's right, boys. Even a trash card, we're gonna like it. I think we'll have a lot of interesting action here. Take a look at the we'll try to get this uploaded today, tomorrow morning, but take a look as well. We might have a DFS look coming out as well, kind of later in the day. Just for you guys to take a look at and build your lineups too. So give us a follow, throw us a like. Cage Cash.
Let's go.